She cheated, gaslit me, and left. Now I'm watching her burn in the hell she chose. I'm a 35-year-old male. My ex-fiancée is 27 years old and female. I used to work the third shift, where I met my ex-fiancée, who was a waitress. About 7 months after I initially met her, I asked her out, and we hit it off. About 8 months went by, and we were walking around the local mall when she saw a jewelry store going out of business. We went in, and she found a bridal set she liked, so I bought them. I didn't give them to her until I proposed to her about 4 to 5 months later. Our wedding was supposed to be on D-Day of this year. When COVID started, she got furloughed, but I continued working. I made enough to cover both of our expenses, so I really wasn't too worried. I had $2,000 every month direct deposited into her account, and I just let her take care of managing the joint bills as well as her own. After she got furloughed, she made zero attempt to find any kind of employment, even temporarily. I didn't push her very hard to be fair, but I did ask her a couple of times about it. She refused to consider it, stating that nobody was hiring, although I know for a fact a place right down the street was. A month and a half goes by, and she does nothing other than sit at home and play video games. She doesn't want to leave the house to do anything, and she doesn't want to go with me to do anything either. Nothing out of the blue, she starts wearing makeup at home, which I thought was odd considering she never left the house. Her hours change from roughly being aligned with mine to being awake all night and asleep when I'm home. One day, she decides she wants to go to Tennessee to comfort a friend who is going through a divorce again. I thought this odd, considering she never wanted to leave the house, let alone go do anything. I didn't say anything because at this point, I just thought it was odd and I didn't really suspect much. Throughout the trip, she sends me random pictures of her and her female friend. This is also odd because she was never really in the habit of sending me pictures of herself, nor did she like taking them. There were a couple of other little things I don't really remember, but after seeing all of these changes in behavior, I asked her about it all. She responded that there was nothing to worry about and that I was being paranoid. I pointed out that I had seen she had added a couple of random guys I didn't know to her Facebook account and asked if she was talking to any of them on Facebook or texting or whatever. She said she wasn't. I told her that was okay and that I was sorry I brought it up. The next day, she tells me she wants to postpone the wedding a year because it was unhealthy to start a marriage under suspicion or something like that. I wasn't happy because it sure didn't make me suspect her any less, but I relented. I think this was maybe back in late March or April. A month goes by, and I literally didn't say a word about the conversation. Her behavior had sort of gotten worse without getting into specifics, but I didn't make it obvious that I wasn't pleased with it. I just kind of let it go as much as I could. So, I go to my sister's house out of state for a weekend, and the night before I'm supposed to come back, I asked her if everything is okay. I asked her if she wants to back out of the engagement so we can kind of learn who we were and just enjoy each other's company. She stated we would talk about it the next day. This is where the shit gets really weird. So, I get home, and she isn't wearing her engagement ring. I asked her about it, and she tells me that we are breaking up and that it was my decision to do so. I'm laying on the couch, kind of shocked and really confused by what had occurred. She immediately gets out wine and starts drinking, puts on some music, and wants to dance with me. She tells me that she plans on not moving out of the apartment that we both signed the lease on the lease, unless things got weird. She then makes comments about setting up a Tinder profile for me. I told her I really couldn't do any of that, and I went back into the back room to play my own video games. I played games for about an hour before I realized I can't be in the house with her because I can hear her music going while she's dancing. So, I pack an overnight bag and head to my mom's house. There is a driveway camera on the inside of my house that watches outside, but it has a microphone in it. I activated it and heard her talking to some dude on the internet about the breakup, telling him she is moving home the coming weekend. I sent her a couple of text messages and heard her talk about them to this dude. I couldn't really make out what he was saying because the camera microphone wasn't that good. I returned to the house, removed anything of mine that was valuable, and told her I had heard part of the conversation. I brought up the fact that we had previously had a conversation about whether or not she was talking to any other guys, and I pointed out that she had denied it. Her response: I didn't ask if she was chatting somebody else. I only asked if she was texting or Facebook messaging. I was honestly shocked, and when that sentence left her mouth, I immediately second-guessed anything she had ever told me. This is really the last time I had a conversation with her that I ever really believed anything she said. From this point on, it's been utter BS, polite utter BS, but BS nonetheless. The last part of this happened back in early May. I believe I unfortunately have to see my ex once a month to get her half of the rent money. I strongly suspect she was cheating on me, or at the very least, planning to do so. I also kind of get the impression that she was trying to gaslight me about the whole thing on top of it. I guess at this point, it doesn't really matter, but I wanted to have somebody else's opinion on the matter, so maybe I can get some closure. What do you say? Was she cheating on me? Relevant comments. Yep, I'm an older female and not working. I used to work third shift as a baker. Once I stopped working, I matched my time to my day walker hubs. She changed hers up. Red flag. Makeup. I've only put on eyeliner since March, and my hub's coworkers on Zoom calls do not wear makeup unless they are meeting with clients. Some don't even do more than rush their hair. Red flag. Taking a trip to a place you didn't know she had connections. Red flag. Stop the money, get the ring back. Yeah, you can and should. I'm not a lawyer, but I've watched way too many judge shows, and the general consensus is that if you had cheated, you forfeit the ring. She cheated, she forfeits the ring. I don't care about the value. It's the principle. Don't leave. Make it uncomfortable for her. Set up cameras in the common areas. She can sleep on the couch or with her new fella. One last bit of advice from this old lady. Give a relationship at least a year before moving in together, and another year before proposing, in general, but not a set rule. Believe it or not, I already got it back. She also moved out months ago, but she still pays half the rent because we were free and clear of a lease, and she wanted to resign about a month before she started acting really weird. When she moved out, she told me that she had called the leasing office and they told her that she could get out of the lease if she wanted to. She told me that she was going to stay in to help me out, which caused a scare for me initially. But after doing some research, I realized she was just psing me. If she stops paying the rent, I'll just sue her for her half of it and be done with it, not out of malice, just principle. Update. I posted my story here about a year ago, right after a now ex-fiancé dumped me. I haven't heard much from her until about a week ago, when she texted me, asking questions about something I'm interested in. I answered them, and the conversation concluded. I thought that would be that, so I blocked her on my texting app, thinking it would block her on everything. But it turns out it only blocked the texts. She called me the next day, and you wouldn't think, based on the conversation and the tone of voice she used, that anything was wrong. I'm curious as to why she is suddenly starting to have conversations with me a year after we broke up. I'm open to thoughts and advice. Well, I definitely will not be sleeping with her. That's for sure my choice. I messaged her, and we had a discussion where she alternated between trying to make me feel like a tyrant and oppressor, saying that at the time she dumped me, she was thinking about committing SCD. Finally, she settled on saying that she would be the bad guy if it would help me get closure. She mentioned something about crying the night we broke up, but I distinctly remember her wanting to drink, dance, and party. I don't remember tears being shed. Look at my history if you want to know more on it. I do, however, feel like 1,000 tons have been lifted off of my shoulders because after having time to look back on what happened, I now see who she really is. No contact as of the last 2 days. I don't anticipate any from her, and I certainly am not going to contact her myself. Edit. Well, I definitely will not be sleeping with her. That's for sure my choice. I messaged her, and we had a discussion where she alternated between trying to make me feel like a tyrant and oppressor, saying that at the time she dumped me, she was thinking about committing SCD. Finally, she settled on saying that she would be the bad guy if it would help me get closure. She mentioned something about crying the night we broke up, but I distinctly remember her wanting to drink, dance, and party. I don't remember tears being shed. Look up my history if you want to know more on it. I do, however, feel like 1,000 tons have been lifted off of my shoulders because, after having time to look back on what happened, I now see who she really is. No contact as of the last 2 days. I don't anticipate any from her, and I certainly am not going to contact her. Update. Not sure if anyone remembers my story, but I finally found out formally that the dude I thought my ex-fiancé was banging while I was engaged is now in a relationship with her. This sort of confirms my theory. I'm not really sure how to feel, to be honest. I was furious for about 2 seconds, then I realized she just sort of proved me right, and I'm sort of calm but really annoyed at the same time. Update. Around 4 years ago, I posted a thread about a fiancé I thought was cheating on me. I figured I'd post an update. I hadn't heard hide nor hair of my ex in these past 4 years. Until I ran into a coworker who was the sister of a friend of the ex. The ex was cheating on me with the guy. And everyone here thought she was. She moved to Chicago, where this guy professed on the internet to be somehow involved with the mob, and right into his arms. Anywho, the relationship ended for whatever reason, and she moved on. She then married guy number 2 and had a kid with him. Turns out he's emotionally abusive and lazy, doesn't help her with the kid, etc. I don't wish this type of thing on my worst enemy, even my ex. As for me, I got married this past May to a beautiful, kind-hearted woman who loves me for me. So, I'm doing fine. If you're reading this, I've been where you are. Don't give up and keep moving forward. See you all on the flip side. Story 2. I'm really conflicted about this. My 30-year-old female friend, 28-year-old Lola, is in a relationship with a guy we'll call Carl, 38-year-old male. We all know Carl was previously married, and he and his ex-wife were swingers. Now it appears Lola and Carl have a similar dynamic. Never judge them for it. To each their own. Carl always seemed to treat her well and has been nothing but nice to me, so I never had an issue, nor did I even feel the need to discuss it with her. But 2 weekends ago, my wedding weekend, we were all out together and very drunk. Carl put his hands up my skirt while I was sitting down. I hopped up and tried to brush it off. A few minutes later, he groped my BT. I told my husband, Sam, 29-year-old male, about this. He's a pretty non-confrontational, golden retriever type guy, which I love about him. He was also pretty wasted at the time and just laughed it off as us all, just being drunk. I decided to let it go, but we went home. Flash forward to today, and my other friend, Kate, a 32-year-old female, calls me. She said on Saturday she was hanging out with Carl, Lola, and another guy, Rick, at the bars. They gave Kate Molly, and they all got drunk together. Carl insisted they go back to Lola's. Carl proceeded to encourage Rick to finger Lola, which he did. At that point, Carl started rubbing Kate's arm and coming on to her. Kate said she pretended to be sick from the substances and locked herself in a room. She was too inebriated to get home at this point. Kate said Lola and Carl had been trying to set this up for a while, saying things like, "You have to meet Rick," so she feels like it was almost premeditated and planned. But she never expected to be looped into their dynamic, least of all while she was so inebriated. Now, I'm feeling a flood of emotions. If I continue to keep what Carl did the other weekend to myself, and they'd taken advantage of Kate, I would have never forgiven myself. I also feel resentful of my husband for his reaction and how it convinced me that Carl groping me was no big deal. Mad at myself for being convinced of that. I'm all for people living their lives and leading their relationships how they want. But shouldn't it be between consenting adults? Part of me wonders if I'm still overreacting. Maybe they were just testing the waters. They never forced us into anything. But the bigger part of me feels like this was a major overstep. If I confront Lola about this, what should I say? I've been friends with Lola for 8 years. She's been dating Carl for about a year. My husband has since apologized for his initial reaction and asked me what he can do to make it right. He said he wants to confront Carl. I told him I never expected him to do that. I just hate that he invalidated what happened to me. I said, if we ever have a daughter who was groped, would he just laugh it off and say he was probably just drunk? I can tell that hit him hard. I'm pretty torn up about it and don't know what to do. Thank you for all the insight and for validating my concerns. I sent Kate this post, and we've decided to each confront Lola separately about what happened to us. I honestly hadn't considered the fact that Lola was in on this and an equal, or at least a willing participant. But in talking to Kate about your comments, Kate said she'd repeatedly asked Lola what was going on when Carl was touching her, and Lola just didn't respond. I also remember the night Carl touched me. He was buying us all several rounds of shots and pressuring me to take them, even when I said no. At the time, it just seemed like he was a nice guy buying rounds, but now I'm looking at it through a different light. Obviously, we're going to just be honest with Lola about our concerns. I think her reaction will help me determine how, if at all, I'll proceed with our friendship. She really is a genuinely good person with a lot of family and past trauma of her own, so I worry Carl has pulled her into something, and she's just in over her head. At the same time, I know she's an adult and can make her own decisions. I'm hoping Kate and I confronting her will be a wake-up call. I told Kate I'm really glad she told me about what happened to her. I think she's still trying to process it all. Your comments have helped. I spoke with Lola about how Carl assaulted me. I cried and tried to be as blunt as possible. She seemed surprised and upset and said, although they are swingers, nothing like this had ever happened before. Obviously, I know this isn't true, based on what I know happened to Kate. I also told her I'm concerned about her and that I want her to be with someone who respects not only her friends but her too. After our phone call, she sent me this text. I love you so much and I am so sorry. I really don't have words for how I'm feeling right now. I just feel devastated that this happened and how it's made you feel. Please know that there is absolutely nothing in the world that you should ever feel like you have to keep from me. I may not always react perfectly in the moment, but I will always respect you and your feelings, no matter what. I hope you didn't think that I was making excuses for Carl at all. There is no excuse for those actions, drunk or otherwise. It will not happen again. I promise you that. I also want to thank you for looking out for me regarding the matter. That means a lot. There's nothing else I should know, right? I don't get to see Carl until Thursday, and I need to have this conversation with him in person. So, I'm going to gather my thoughts and wait to address it with him until then. I'm so sorry if you want or need to talk about this, or anything. I'm here for you. I love you so much. Honestly, my feeling is that she's more upset about how his actions affected me than she is angry at his actions themselves. Now, Kate is going to talk to Lola about what happened to her too. We hope it will be the wake-up call she needs. If she stays with him, we won't be seeing him or likely her again. Just taking it one day at a time at this point and still trying to cope and process it all. Relevant comments. That's a tough situation. I'd honestly have a heart-to-heart with your friend Lola about it and tell her what happened and your concern over your friend Kate. I'm sorry he groped you and made you uncomfortable. That's always such a shitty feeling. Thank you. I will probably do that. Kate plans to talk to Lola about it this week because they were all supposed to go on a trip this weekend for Lola's birthday. But now, Kate doesn't want to go because she feels uncomfortable. I live in a different state from Lola and Kate. Otherwise, I'd probably suggest we all get together to talk in person. I should probably just give Lola a call and tell her my honest feelings about it. She's just in so deep with Carl, talking about how much she loves him and wants to marry him. I'm worried about losing her friendship over this. Oof. I'm so sorry he chose to behave awfully like that. You're not being dramatic. He's being disrespectful. In healthy SX, live-free communities, swinging, kink, etc., there are still clear expectations for getting consent, and he is not doing that. Does he still go to swinger events? If he acted like this at most of the events I'm familiar with, he'd get warned and then banned. I'd be curious if he's gotten kicked out of swinger events and is now trying to swing with friends instead. That said, would you be willing to send Carl a very clear email about his behavior? You mentioned talking to Lola, but you may want to talk to him directly. Do you trust Lola to hear you? Or do you worry she'll take his side? They've mentioned participating in swinger parties, but I'm not sure the extent of it. I've honestly never asked any follow-up questions about it, because it genuinely never fazed me until now. Obviously, now I wish I'd been more intuitive about it, but like you, I also assumed sober, cognizant consent would be a pretty critical element. I honestly don't think I'm comfortable reaching out to Carl, as I barely know him. My wedding weekend was the second time we'd even met in person, and after what happened, I'm pretty creeped out by anxious about him. Lola is a great person, so I want to believe she'd hear me, but she's also very clearly in love with Carl, which is one of the reasons I'm hesitating to talk to her about it. Or, at least, I want to prepare what to say so that she'll really hear me. I'd like to salvage my relationship with her, but if she discounts me on this, I think it would cause irrevocable damage to our friendship. I wouldn't allow them to come to your wedding. Lola knows exactly what is going on. She was involved with what was done to Kate. They can't force their lifestyle on other people and getting them to take substances and drink, or in your case, drink. This is taking advantage of someone who is not able to make the right decisions as they are intoxicated. This happened the night after my wedding. They already attended, but I won't be hanging out with him again. Update. I felt good after my conversation with Lola. She was super apologetic and seemed horrified and validated my feelings. She talked to Carl and said he doesn't remember it, but that he wanted to reach out to apologize. I said I didn't want an apology from him especially about something he doesn't even remember, and that I feel it's something he needs to look inward on. Lola was supportive and said she'd be here to support me. However, I needed to navigate my feelings on it. However, they're still together, so I'm not sure how I feel about that. She seemed to validate the fact that he assaulted me, but she's staying with him. I hope I at least planted a seed of doubt that will grow and settle. I'm going to distance myself for the time being. Kate hasn't spoken to Lola yet. She's tried calling a few times, but Lola is always with Carl. She's going to have to at some point between now and the weekend because they were all supposed to be going on a trip for Lola's birthday. But now Kate is backing out because of what happened and is planning to tell Lola exactly why. Maybe that will be the nail in the coffin. I don't know. I hope so. New updates. Transcript of text messages. Lola is in black bubbles. Opie is in purple bubbles. Lola. You're right. If you're down to talk, I would like to. Lola, I've never ever talked SHD to you op. You seriously broke my heart with the last messages you sent me, telling me that you couldn't be friends with me as long as I am with him. Like I did something wrong, Lola. If you want to block me, then just do it. You've already destroyed me. Honestly. Give me a minute. I'm driving. Lola, K. Lola, your boyfriend laid his hands on me. Not just once, but again after I said no. I pushed him out of my skirt and walked away. I cried to you about this and how much it impacted me. You chose to continue to keep him in your life. I really struggle with trying to understand. Maybe for some warped reason you just don't think it's a big deal. But to me, it is a big deal, and I didn't ever want to see him again. I was really hurt by your decision to stay in that relationship, but it was your decision, and I can't control that. What I can control is setting boundaries for myself. I don't want him anywhere in the periphery of my life, which is why I said, as long as he's in your life, I can't be. I never blamed you for it. Although now that you've said it, I could argue that staying with a guy who sexually assaulted your friend is doing something wrong, but I never put that on you. I never attacked you or talked down to you. In fact, I felt like I met you with a lot of empathy, despite how personally I was hurting. You're allowed to stay with him and have him in your life, and I'm allowed to have boundaries that keep him out of mine. I'm also heartbroken it did this to our friendship. I think about you all the time and have cried over it a ton. I had to unfollow you because seeing your couple Y, lovey pics felt like a kick to the gut every time. I felt like I kept being reminded that my friendship wasn't enough. But please don't blame me for trying to protect myself. I honestly wish nothing but the best for you. If your boyfriend makes you happy, then I'm glad you're happy. I just don't think I fit into where your life is right now. Lola, Carl is just the least predatory person I've literally ever met in my life. So, honestly, it's hard to believe you, and that sucks. However, you are hurting, and I'm so sorry for it, as I've told you a billion times. But I don't think it was Carl, and I never will. Honestly, I can't forgive you for giving up our friendship over it. I hope you're well. Opie. Update. I still occasionally get DMs asking for updates, so I figured I'd give one. I opened up to my friend about everything, and she seemed to be shocked and devastated. She said she was horrified by his actions, but she stayed with him, so I just kept my distance. A few weeks later, she DM'd me on Instagram with some rude sass about how I am a terrible friend who abandoned her. I said I'd be happy to have an adult conversation with her, but didn't deserve to have her talk shit to me in my DMs out of the blue. The attached messages followed. To summarize, she said she now doesn't believe me and can't forgive me. We share locations, and I saw she was at his house at the time she sent this. Keep in mind, this least predatory person she's ever met also tried to take advantage of our other friend when she was nearly blackout. That last message from her broke my heart into a million pieces and was the nail in the coffin. I blocked her on everything, and we haven't spoken since. Relevant comments on ending her friendship with Lola. Thank you. I tried to be there for her the first time they broke up, after I told her about this, but then they got back together. She didn't even tell me. She just started posting cute couple pics of them. After these messages, I'll never be able to get over her not only not believing me, but also blaming me like that for the friendship ending. The Opie seeks counseling or therapy to deal with what happened. I have sought counseling and, luckily, was able to talk through it with a therapist and a couples counselor with my husband. I have concerns about his reaction, and in my original post, I'm confident now that I did everything I could and my side of the street is clean. Her response did give me some peace and closure in a weird way. Did Kate talk with Lola about what happened? Yes, they spoke pretty much the same story, where Lola acted all horrified and sorry, but then nothing changed. Lola actually invited Kate to a party she and Carl were hosting, and that was the final straw for Kate. She went off on Lola, and they haven't spoken since. How long were Lola and Carl together at the time? They'd only been together about a year.